A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 11. I'm Ritwika Gupta. Tonight we are talking all things retail therapy, diving into the world of beauty to really understand what the Indian woman wants when it comes to beauty. I'll be in an exclusive conversation with Vineeta Singh, CEO and co-founder Sugar Cosmetics. Listen in. Vineeta, thank you so much for being on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you and welcome to the Sugar Store. Very excited about this conversation.
Lovely to be here, and I know you've been on Leaders of Tomorrow as well. During the pandemic, we had a virtual interaction, but I'm so happy to be doing this with you in person.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot has changed since the pandemic, which I'll come to in a bit.
Yeah.
But this is my first interaction with you, and I've always been keen to know what was the idea behind Sugar. In fact, the name as well. What does sugar mean and symbolize for you?
Okay. So firstly, welcome to my home. And so when we launched the brand about 8 years ago, I was very clear that we wanted to have a name which is simple and it represents the emotion that women very strongly correlate with, that is, to have fun.
Yeah.
And to be playful, not take life very seriously. And I feel that Sugar was a name that really embodies that. It's also a name that will eventually help our global aspirations, because I feel that this will definitely be a global brand someday, and it should be a name that can be used by countries across the world. And of course, last but not the least, I always joke about it that makeup does give you a sugar rush, but without the calories.
Absolutely.
Because that's what it is for women.
Yeah.
As a woman, I'm sure you can relate to that. So yeah, that was the idea behind Sugar.
Nice. Vineeta, our show is also watched by a lot of young entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And you have had a very interesting journey. You are a graduate from IIM Ahmedabad. And it's a very famous story that you refused to take up an offer, very lucrative offer. Tell me, at that point, what gave you the conviction, and the confidence that this is the path you want to take, and this is the path you want to this is the right path for you?
I had an investment banking offer, which was considered one of the most sought after ones. And at that point, I also went through that same decision. And I always knew that I'm going to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have the courage to really start my own business because it was scary. I had never really failed at anything. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of fear, but I decided that at some point I'll have to believe in myself.
Yeah.
Even if it is now or 5 years later, 10 years later, it's still going to be hard because running a business is hard.
Yeah.
So I decided to take that big leap of faith, more than anything else, faith in myself, and start it up. And it was hard. It did take more than 10 years of failing at many things before Sugar happened. And but if I hadn't taken that leap of faith, then none of this would have been possible. And I'm very grateful for that. But, so when I meet younger, bright young people now, that's what I tell them, that failure is not optional. You will have to fail at some point.
Yeah.
So you might as well believe in yourself and go after those dreams so that you can invite those failures early on, because that's what you learn from. And if you are not going to believe in yourself, then who's going to believe in you? And really, it's impossible in a country like India, which has 1.4 billion people, to ever be the smartest, brightest, best at anything. But what you can really do is be the one who can take risks. You can be the one who believes in themselves, because these are very rare, even in the 1.3 billion people that live in India. So success comes from really taking those moonshots, really believing in yourself and going after your dreams. I feel very good because at the end of the month now, I don't just write my own paycheck, but I write that for 4,000 other people. And that fills me with the kind of pride which I think no other job could have filled me with. And that's why I'm grateful I did have the courage to take that decision.
And that's very inspiring to hear as well. I started this interview by talking about the pandemic, and a lot of things have changed. Consumer sentiment has changed, consumer preference has changed. So I want to try and understand what, according to you, the Indian woman wants when it comes to beauty today.
I think till a few years ago, beauty used to have a certain definition, that you had to look like a certain level of perfection in terms of having a lighter skin tone, having like really perfectly perfect, bright and clear skin, and there would be these prescribed definition of makeup.
Sure.
Women of today, they are not only taking charge of their lives by saying that, okay, I will go after my dreams in terms of, education that I want, in terms of taking up the kind of job I want, in terms of marrying the person I want, but also I will own my beauty in the way it works for me. Which means that I think women have moved away from that one size fits all to seeing beauty as a form of self-expression. So what I'm seeing a lot of over the last 3-4 years is, firstly, it's self-expression. So women use makeup not to hide any flaws or to look fairer or to be prescribed to a certain definition, as per a certain celebrity, but they do what helps them express themselves, what makes them feel confident, feel powerful. That's what lipstick is for women. They apply lipstick and they feel unstoppable.
Yeah.
So I think firstly, women are moving towards self-expression. And the second big shift, which I've seen actually after the pandemic, is self-care. Women have decided that, we worked all our lives for people around us. We're always doing more for our families, we're doing more at work, we're contributing, sacrificing, but it's time we invest in ourselves, because if we don't invest in ourselves, we won't be the best version for our families. We won't be there in our best form for our companies. And that self-care is also coming in the form of women spending more time doing their skincare routines, figuring out what makes them feel good. And so I think that's where beauty is heading now. So this industry, which is currently at about $8 billion as far as beauty and personal care is concerned, the predictions are that over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to become $25 billion. And that's all going to come from young India primarily, because we are a young country. If you see, 65% of women are actually under the age of 35. And that's where you've seen the biggest shift in terms of consumption, in terms of preferences. And I think that will just keep happening.
Right. So just staying on that a bit, I know you touched upon it, but I am keen to understand, what are the biggest opportunities do you see in the Indian beauty market? What sort of, opportunities do you see, for young women?
Today, there is pride in associating with brands that are made in India. So I think the first big opportunity is there will be a lot of brands that will be made in India. And I feel that while it seems like there are already a lot of brands, the diversity that you have in India in terms of complexions, in terms of regions, in terms of preferences, weather conditions is very vast. India is one of the most diverse countries, and which is why I feel that, and brands are, you buy a brand because you feel a connection to it.
Yeah.
And it is difficult for one brand to feel a connection with everybody. So there will be these niche brands that will emerge. The other big opportunity is tech. I feel that in beauty, like starting with the AR filters that we all use in our apps, like the Sugar app, you can actually go in and try out any lipstick sitting at your home and figure out whether it works for your own skin tone or not. Similarly, there are a lot of devices that are now coming up in beauty as category. So I think, and of course, AI is doing a much better job of helping women figure out what's going to work for them, so that they don't have to waste their money buying products that are not going to work for them. Okay. So I feel that the second big opportunity is going to be around tech. The third, I feel, is a massive opportunity around content and influence. So the reason that Sugar has managed to grow as fast as it is that every month because we have the largest community on social media. So on Instagram, we have 2.5 million followers. On YouTube, we have 1.5 million. These 4 million women are interacting every day with our educational content. And there is also this set of influencers. So, if you look at younger consumers, only 1% of them trust ads, but about 30% of them trust influencers. Okay. And fourth, of course, is services. Sure. There will be a time where you will be able to get any kind of a service at an affordable price point in any part of the country, sitting at your homes. Fifth, of course, I think that's already e-commerce, where like 2,000 pin code, 20,000 pin codes today can be serviced from one warehouse by Sugar. I feel that is already something where 15% of the market share has moved from offline to online. And that's another opportunity where we continue to see growth happen. So these are the 5 broad opportunities which I see for the beauty industry.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 11 in conversation tonight with Vineeta Singh, CEO and co-founder, Sugar Cosmetics. Listen in. Speaking about made in India brands, if we look at the beauty market, it's been largely dominated by foreign players, which you mentioned. So my next question is in 2 parts. Firstly, why has that been so, And secondly, how did then Sugar manage to crack the market? What do you think has been your USP so far?
So till 10 years ago, the only way to build a brand was 2 things. One is that you had to do television advertising, because that's the only way to get trust of millions of Indians. And there was no way for smaller made in India brands to actually spend 40 crores, 50 crores in a year on television ads, because they had a problem of scale. Second big challenge used to be distribution, because obviously at the end of the day, you need like an entire, if you want to be available in 200,000 doors in India, which most FMCG brands are already available in with a few of their products, it was much easier for them to say that, okay, I am now bringing this new brand to India, and I already have this footprint of 200,000 doors, same distributors, same retailers, same team, let's build this, right? So this was like the playbook of launching brands in India till about 10 years ago. Now, what has happened in the last 10 years is that all of this has been democratized, right? So firstly, television and the time spent on television, if you look at how much time you now spend watching television versus social media, it's shifted for everybody. It could be different for different age groups, but on average, people are now spending, especially educated women, are now spending 7 to 8 hours every day on their mobile phones. So all that information and awareness that was getting built on television can now happen through social media. And on social media, it's also easy to get, to see what products work best for me, rather than like the same product being sold by a celebrity for every person. Second is, of course, e-commerce. So distribution got displaced, where 15% of the cosmetics market share now is online. That means that a young brand can come in and say that I have this one hero product, and which has like tens of thousands of reviews, which means that it doesn't matter what the large FMCG companies would do. If you're going to buy this specific product, you're going to buy mine. And that's what happened with Sugar. So firstly, we had these really matte, really long-lasting lipsticks. So we were the first brand in India to bring out these liquid lipsticks that would last you all day in the most extreme weather conditions, whether it was in summer with the pollution, with public transport, it would still stay intact from morning to night. So online, what happened is that once the product launched, women started commenting, influencers started saying that you have to get this product because it stays on all day. And they've worked very hard on creating colors that suit Indian skin tones, especially the deepest and the warmest. And then of course came the power of social media. So unlike 10 years ago, suddenly by just having 10 women sitting out of an office in Mumbai, we could start sharing our story with millions of consumers through YouTube, Instagram, and we're still the largest and fastest growing brand on Instagram and YouTube. And I would say third is that we recognized very early that omni-channel is the way to grow, and we started building distribution, I think like about 5 or 6 years back, when it wasn't as competitive. There weren't as many brands fighting for shelf space, which meant that we could do it in a more constructive way than spending a lot of money in building distribution. So I think these are the 3 biggest drivers that have led to Sugar coming this far.
Sure. Vinita, I also read that recently you're also planning to expand your offline presence.
Yes.
And that's very interesting to me because when we speak of Gen Z and the millennial consumers, there's a perceived notion that they love to shop online more than offline. So tell me, what's the rationale behind this particular move?
So yes, very interesting time that you're sitting in one of our stores, and we're just next week launching our 200th store.
Fantastic.
So, this store, there are actually 200 of these in India now. And it sounds very crazy for a brand to do that, because in India, forget cosmetics, but across categories, there'll be probably a handful of brands that have actually 200 of their own stores. But we launched our first store back in 2018, which was about 5 years ago. And the reason we did that is that we feel that Gen Z is actually not very particular about only shopping online or only shopping offline. They're very fluid. If you look at the behavior, every time a younger consumer is in store, they'll always have their mobile out. They'll be speaking to their friends. They have a community where they're having a conversation around beauty, or they're reading reviews, but they're shopping or trying the colors out in store. And then there's the other way where they're sitting at home and shopping online, but the research or which makeup to which exact shade would work for them, they've done in the store. So I think they're very fluid. And it is still 85% of the market is still offline.
Right.
Offline is not going to grow as fast as online. But the only way for a brand to actually become the largest brand in the country is by embracing both omni-channel, which means that the experience that you get in a store should be exactly the same as online. And I think we did a great job of building all that education online, because we invested a lot in a good studio, in really good content, really good voices and influencers disseminating that content. And then the real challenge for us was how to bring that whole thing into a store. And I hope we're doing a decent job of it by having like the best makeup artists who can actually build all of that education in these stores now. We use these stores as spaces for a lot of community events where we call influencers, we call our makeup artists as well as consumers to actually come and learn and embrace the feel of the place and experience the products. So we feel that these are great for creation of content and places where the community can come and hang. And secondly, these will also help us get the trust of the consumer, especially in cities where there's still a lot of shopping that happens offline. And over a period of time, as a brand, we will continue to grow both digitally as well as offline. 90% of our discovery, first time you hear about sugar, is probably going to still happen digitally. You still probably first discover it on social media. But your feeling of trust and saying, okay, I'm ready to dive in and try the brand out, that is probably going to happen offline.
Nice. Vinita, you've also had a strategic focus when it comes to the path to profitability. So tell us about the trajectory, the progress that you've made so far.
So you're right, profitability is a very, very important goal for us. And over the last 2-3 years, we've been reducing the EBITDA burn that we have. In fact, we improved on our EBITDA percentage by about 15% in FY23. And FY24, the plan is to actually be profitable. We're actually very close to that. So maybe next month or the month after that, onwards, we will be profitable. That's something that, fundamentally it is a high gross margin business. We operate at almost 73-74% gross margins. The only reason we have so far not broken even is, we were profitable, but last 4 to 5 years we've not broken even is because we've invested in growth. We've invested in building distribution. We've invested in building brand awareness. We've invested in the team. And I think now we're at a stage where we feel that we're ready to use that leverage of the scale that we have in distribution and the awareness that we've created and the team that we have. And the time is right for us to actually become a profitable and, of course, long-term sustainable business. So there is a massive focus across the board. I'm very optimistic that it should happen in the next 2-3 months.
I often ask my guests what is the big idea that he or she has, in that particular sector. So my question to you is, what do you think is that one big idea or the couple of ideas, that's going to really transform the beauty space, the retail space perhaps as well? What would you like to say?
Yeah, I think the one big idea which I feel is going to be around one size doesn't fit all, and personalization across the board in terms of creating products that work for very specific niches, brands that emerge serving particular niches. I think that personalization is going to be a massive opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years. And the second is, I think, more focus on Make in India. We are also heavily looking at figuring out that everything, including packaging, can it be created and built end-to-end in India. I think for beauty, as far as manufacturing is concerned, India does still have a long way to go as far as technology. And I feel that over the next 10 years, there will be a lot of shift where overall imports in the beauty personal care category would go down, and we'll start creating end-to-end from packaging to ingredients to the final product in India. Third, I think, is beauty with care, which is basically around ensuring that every single product is cruelty-free. So like Sugar is a completely cruelty-free brand, and there will be a lot of brands that will be emerging which are actually either vegan or animal cruelty-free, not tested on animals. And then, of course, we'll have ingredients that are better for your skin. So even when you're applying makeup, there are certain care benefits.
Well, that was really insightful, Vinita. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ritwika.
With that, it's a wrap on this episode of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 11. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thank you and good night.